Hi, my friends. This is Defining Moments vlog number 16. Have you ever experienced a moment that completely changed you? One that left you wondering how your life would ever be normal again? In this particular vlog, I share a moment from my book, Defining Moments, which was written from my journals and my experiences of heartache, despair, and trauma that stemmed from my husband's TBI and beyond. I also share perspectives of hope, thoughts of faith, and miraculous experiences that preserved my life, which emphasized to me that God is always with us. He taught me through His grace and love, protected me in ways I can only identify fully as I look back. I hope these thoughts bring you renewed possibilities, clarity, and faith. Welcome to vlog episode 16. It is July of 1993. The night before my son was born, my husband and I had an argument about my family, and he left saying that he wasn't sure when he would be back. I asked him what I would do if I had the baby, and he just said that he would keep in touch. I was so emotional that night that I ended up reading in bed after I put my daughter to bed, and my little baby inside me did at least a 360 inside of me, maybe more. I was so shocked in that moment. He was always a super active baby, but this was not something I had ever felt before, and I was pretty shocked. So eventually I went to sleep. I actually cried myself to sleep that night. Sometime early in the morning, I felt a gush of water, and I went to the bathroom and thought that was kind of peculiar. I thought, I wonder if my water's broke, I really wasn't even able to think a clear thought. I didn't know that that's what had happened. I wasn't sure that that's what had happened. About an hour later, trying to go back to sleep, I finally had this conscious thought that came to my mind that I should look it up in my book called What to Expect When You're Expecting. So I looked it up, and it said that I should call the hospital and go to the hospital. And still, even then, I laid back down and tried to go back to sleep. But a larger thought in my head said I needed to go to the hospital. Eventually, in my heart, I was like, oh, I need to go to the hospital. So I called my mom, and she came right over, helped me get my daughter ready and myself. We headed to the hospital, but not before I left my husband a message that said where I was going and what was happening. As I got to the hospital with my mom, my husband called and told me that he wouldn't come into the hospital until he saw my mom leave. We had already agreed that she would watch our daughter, and she did take her and left the hospital, and my husband came in. I still wish I had allowed my mom to stay and not my husband. He came in, and a few hours later, our son was born. I was told to stop pushing right before he was born because the cord was wrapped around his neck 3 times, and I wasn't surprised about that at all. It wasn't a very relaxing birth. There was a lot of contention and tension that day. Since then, looking back on that experience, I've often replayed in my mind and wished I had allowed my mom to be there instead. I wished I had refused his call in the hospital, not because I wish I had been cruel to him, but simply I wish that my son's birth could have been more peaceful and happy and filled with love from the beginning, with people who loved me and my new baby instead of feeling forced. There really should have been a consequence for my husband leaving the night before and saying what he said and leaving me in a state of such emotional pain at 8.5 months pregnant. There really is no excuse for that, but it was what it was, and I handled myself as well as I knew how. Looking back at that emotional turmoil I was in consistently throughout his existence inside me, it really is a miracle that he was born as healthy as he was. How happy and relieved I was because it was a boy. I wasn't sure my husband would be able to handle having another girl at that time. My family came to the hospital, and it was wonderful. But coming home, I was so sad, depressed, lonely, confused, etc. I wanted my mom, but my husband wouldn't allow it. I wasn't sure how to take care of 2 babies and a husband that acted like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, who I was supposed to take care of as well. My little baby boy at that time was throwing up everything. I was nursing him, but I had to stop because for some reason my milk ducts clogged, and I was told to stop nursing and bind myself, which was so painful I could hardly stand it. I developed mastitis, with an infection that included chills and a fever. The pain was actually worse than giving birth. I continued to be in so much pain emotionally and physically. It's no wonder that this happened. As my son continued to throw up, I feel now that that was his way of ridding his body of the negative energy. He's always been sensitive to energies, and I believe it began even before he was born with that 360 he did inside of me. Another thing that was really difficult at this time, in 1993, was finding a shotgun bullet that my husband would carry around in his shirt pocket, or I would find hidden in different places around the house. I knew he was angry, and although he complained and we fought about my family or us continuously, I knew those things were never the problem. It was always the head injury. He understood this at some level because he would comment on it now and then, how it would have been better if he died. Once he was so upset, he slammed a solid wood front door over and over until it broke and nearly came off the hinges. Then he went and slammed his head into the wall until the sheetrock broke and there were large indentations left from his head on the wall. He said he hoped he would get another head injury and maybe it would kill him. The competency and confidence he had before was always more than enough. Of course he wished he had died, but there was very little he could still do that felt anywhere near the same as it did before. He no longer had the abilities he remembered having, so having the recognition of who he once was had to be a living nightmare. I did comprehend this at some level, but it was nearly impossible to remain objective and remember that my family and I were not the problem, that it was simply the TBI and his inability to reason because of it. I know now it does simply no good to attempt to reason with someone who cannot reason. I grew up knowing the right answers from church. I've learned them since I was young, but when these times came that completely knocked me down over and over, I found I really didn't know how to hear God or how to truly trust Him. But because of these experiences, I learned how. Since then, I have learned, and I'm still learning, of course, to give my concerns and worries to Him, and especially how to hear Him to get answers I need. I know I don't have to handle anything alone or even feel alone, and that God is always with me when your world turns upside down or into something that you cannot recognize. Or if you find yourself in a similar situation, or maybe the feelings just feel familiar to these that I've expressed, remember, you do not have to handle this alone. I witness that our toughest trials have the capability to strengthen and improve us. They can even become sweet. What a miracle it can be. I know if we choose to allow our will to be swallowed up in God's will, we can truly walk with Him, and during the hardest times, He will carry us. If we want Him to, He can help us with it. Anything, everything, if we want Him to. Remember Him, talk to Him, ask, listen, receive. I know that this works. I've proved it many times, and I've been through far too many things not to know that this works and that these things are true. Until next time, keep on keeping on with God.